Welcome csc103 class. I'm just going to review using the clone stamp in Pixler that we used on one of our exercises. I'm just going to do the kids on the beach one rather than the one that uses the power lines. So what I'm going to do is go into Pixler, open up the web app down here, the Pixler editor, not Express, and I'm going to open image from computer. I'm going to assume that you already downloaded it from my Warren, so I'm going to open it from computer. I'm just going to open up one that I have here that's kids on beach.jpg. And here it is, and what we want to do here is get rid of all these people in the ocean. So I'll just get started with it, and we're going to use this tool. The clone stamp tool is the one that we're going to use, and what it does is it paints over neighboring pixels to make it look like whatever's there wasn't really there in the first place. So you have to use some skill with it, or else it'll look kind of faked. And we couldn't use flat color either, because that will also look fake. So what it'll do is it'll kind of sample all the different tones that are right next to it. So you want to stay as close as you can without kind of piggybacking right on it. And I'll show you what I mean. But we're going to take away this person from the photo first. And I'm going to zoom in. And I'll use the navigator over here. And then I'll just scroll. Or you could have used the zoom tool to kind of zoom into that area. But I'm going to start with this area. And what I'm going to use is the clone stamp tool. And when you use this, you'll see this little circle right here. And that's actually the brush size. That's the size of the brush, but keep in mind that a brush also has a hardness to it as well. This is the diameter, that's what size it is, but you don't know how hard or soft the brush is. And when you're kind of working with ocean, you want to keep it a little more on the softer side. You don't want really hard edges. So you can go in here into the brush, to the drop down. I'm going to put it up a little bit bigger, and I'll move it up to... This slider goes really fast, so I'll show you a shortcut in a second. And then same thing in here. I'm going to just kind of go in between to maybe 70 for here. So I'll just click up here in this bar to make it go away. And I'm working on a Mac, so when I'm doing command click, if you're on Windows, you're going to be doing control click. If you're on a MacBook or something like that, you'll be doing command click. Now I'm working in Chrome right now, and this is a good size brush. I don't want anything too huge. It's about, maybe double the size of the legs here. So what I'm going to do is kind of paint over some of this here. Now usually what I'll do is I'll start with kind of the lines first, because they're usually a little more challenging. And what you want to do is control click if you're on Windows, command click if you're on Mac, and set a target point of where you're going to start painting. And I'm going to put it on aligned right now so that it kind of just follows me each time I start. It'll kind of start where I left off. So I'm going to command click on Mac, control click on Windows, and then move away. I held down the key, I clicked, and then I moved away, and I'm not starting right where I set my target point. I'm moving away a little bit, and then once I start painting, once I use my mouse or your trackpad, whatever you're using, and you start painting, you'll see the target point right behind you. And if I start painting, there it is. You see the target point? It's right over there. There's the target point. That's where it's painting from, and my brush is what I'm painting. So I'm just going to keep going in that direction. And you have to watch, because it could paint over things that are already there. It may pick up some things, but it looks like it's going okay. And then you can go from the other direction. You could go over this side, and you don't want to go right where you're going to start. Get away a little bit, and I'm going to command click, and then move. I'm moving maybe, on screen like a 1/4 inch away. And now I'm going to start painting again, and you could see what it's sampling. You could see there's the target point, pointing to it right now. That's the target point. And I'm just going to keep painting. Now I got to watch. I want to keep this so it lines up okay. It may not be perfect. And I'm picking up a shadow there. You can see I'm re-picking up a shadow, so I may have to... Now if I wanted to make my brush a little smaller to go over that shadow, I could go over here and adjust the brush and make the diameter smaller. Or there's a shortcut I could use. If you look up Pixler shortcuts, but I'll just... On my keyboard, if you use the less than and greater than sign, and it's actually the comma and the period that you can use. I think the comma is the less than, so if I hit the less than sign, it makes my brush a little smaller, and sometimes that's helpful than going back into that other thing again. That way, if I just wanted to do this area right here, I'm going to command or control click, and then I'll start right here, and you can see it. That's using a smaller target area, so it may not pick up as much that it was doing before. And you can keep going in from either side. Now, you can see I'm getting a little bit of a line there, so I might make my brush a little bigger again. So I'll use the period or the greater than sign, and I'll just kind of paint a little from this side and kind of move in a little. And just kind of, smudge it a little bit just so it's not too noticeable. So that's the hardest part, is getting that line. Now this stuff, because it's a lot of just white fluffy waves, is pretty easy to do. So I'm just going to start over here, set my target point, and then start painting right here. And you can see the target point going through it. And then I'm just going to keep doing that. And depending what's there, you know, if you wanted to go over here and pick up some of the darker kind of shadows of the wave, you could do that. You just want to be careful that you're not seeing repetitive or repeating kind of patterns, because that looks fake. So I'll just kind of keep coming in from different sides. And you can see you don't want your target, when I paint, I don't want my target point like right next to it. I don't want it right here. This is a good distance of where it's at right now. So I'll just kind of paint over here, and you can see it's picking up some stuff that was already there, so you may have to stop, and you could keep stopping. And now I'll come in from this side. And sometimes you could just click. You don't have to always be brushing. You don't want to scrub back and forth, and you don't always have to keep, you could just kind of click too. If you have a big enough brush, you know, you could just kind of click, and see how it looks if you have a soft brush, and then kind of, you know, then kind of move around a little bit. And, you know, over here I'll come in from this side again. You know, you can see I'm picking up some things. So, you know, it's going to take some practice. It takes a long, you know, takes a long time to get good at it. You can do it a little bit in the beginning, but you just want to make sure that you're avoiding a lot of repeating artifact. Now, this is kind of tough here because there's not a real even wave that's going to be, you know, that you could just go across right here. There's a big splash here. There's a little splash here. So you got to, you know, I'm not sure the best way to do it. You could take a little bit here and start working in here and just go across a little, and then maybe go across from the other side a little bit and try to meet in there a little bit, but you still have to figure out what to do with that wave and what's going to happen up there. But that doesn't look too bad, so I'm just going to fill in this area here. And now I just have to, I'm going to use this. You see this little line in the ocean? I'm going to kind of start over here and try to paint over with that and see what happens. And that doesn't look too bad. It's starting to pick up the arm, so I could go back, and I'm going to actually use this part over here. See if I could sample and just kind of fill in that area there, and even here. And then I won't start until I get way over here. And that doesn't look too bad. If you do something wrong, just kind of you know, undo. Do a Control Z or Command Z. Now it's a little soft here, but that's okay. If you want to put a little hard edge in there, you can kind of borrow one from somewhere and just kind of put one in there. Now I have a little bit of hard edge there. And again, when you get back, you're not going to notice that much. Now I'm going to finish off doing this. Again, I'll command click or control click here, and then I just clicked, and then I'll start painting right when I get here at the shoulder, and you can see there's the target going by, and then I could keep getting into this person here. I could get a little of that color that's in there. If there's anything missing, there's lots of areas. Now I'm close to the top, so you don't want your brush up here. You have to kind of stay down here. That's why sometimes it might even be better making a little bit of a harder brush when you get near the edges. But I'm going to click here and then kind of get through this a little bit, and then maybe from the other side and come back. And any artifacts in there you can kind of clean up, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. Now the rest of this should be pretty easy. That was probably the hardest one. So, you know, there's that guy there in the ocean. I'll get rid of him. He's pretty easy to get rid of, and all the other stuff up here should be pretty easy to get rid of. You know, it's a skill that takes some time to get to learn, but as long as, you know, you kind of try not to do anything that repeats, as long as you don't scrub back and forth, as long as you do nice kind of smooth, you know, and adjust the brush size when you need to, you know, you could do a nice job. I could go through, you could start going through this person here pretty quickly. And you just have to watch, not, you know, where your tones are. You know, if you miss something, then go further out and pick something up again, darken that up a little bit. So that's about it. You just have to do the rest of that, and you can do this on different layers. That's actually safer, but just for now, just for our practice, we're kind of doing this here. If I zoom out a little bit using Command minus or Control minus, and I could see I missed a little bit of the head up there. I guess I wasn't scrolled all the way up, so I could fix that. You could leave the shadow in here, even though technically, you know, there really shouldn't be a shadow there because there was a person in the ocean creating that, not shadow, but reflection. But, you know, it kind of adds some variation to the beach. People probably wouldn't really notice that and try to deduce that there was somebody there that you removed or anything like that, unless you were trying to really trick somebody. It actually adds, you know, some kind of interest, you know, to this photo here. But sometimes what helps is getting rid of all these people here. It just makes for a nicer kind of photo. So that's using the clone stamp tool. And once you're done, you can just save it, you could go File, Save, and it says Kids on a Beach, and you could just call this, I think this was like EX5 or something. I just think we called it like 5 dash, you could just call it Beach and put your last name. I'll just put underscore. I'll put my last name, first initial, and then I'll hit OK. And then it'll prompt me to where I want to save it. So wherever you would save it, if you're working on it at home or if you're doing it in school, save it where your other images are. And I'm saving it as a different image than I had originally, just so, in case I messed it up too bad. And then I'll save it, and then that's the one that I'm going to upload in my Warren for my assignment. And you could certainly practice with the other one with the power lines as well. That one's a little tricky too. Skies aren't as easy as they look, but this isn't a bad job there with the waves. So that's just a little tip on working with the clone stamp tool in Pixler.